Welcome to today's Fireside Chat. I'm Sienna, Product Manager at Sandbird, Communication API Platform, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. Today's session's topic is scaling with certainty through strategic frameworks. Joining us is Damien Passavant, Chief Product Officer at Aspire. Damien, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much, Sienna. Thank you, Tech in Asia. Everyone for the invitation and the opportunity to be here and share a bit about what we are doing and some of the learnings we've had on the way.
Okay, and Damien, to kick things off, could you please tell us a little bit of your background and your role and responsibility at Aspire?
Sure. So background, I'm an engineer. I'm French, maybe first, if that matters. So engineer, I studied computer science, mathematics in France. I then basically discovered the world of entrepreneurship a bit by chance when I was in college during a hackathon and found that interesting. So I started working in startups, first as an employee, then as a founder, founded a net tech in France. And at some point came across Aspire, which at the time was in 2019, a relatively early stage company, fintech in Singapore. It corresponded to roughly what I was looking for at the time, so a job first in product, as I realized while working in early stage startups that I liked product, and just had raised funds, so seemed like lots of potential, growing, scaling stage, which is something that I hadn't experienced before. So that's a bit about me, right? Background, how I came to Aspire, and Aspire, just briefly, right? In case you don't know, so is a startup headquartered in Singapore with presence and serving clients in Singapore, but also in Indonesia. We are a fintech, Series C. We raised a Series C around 18 months ago. We are around 600 employees in the company. We are definitely a tech company, right? Around 1/3 of the headcount is tech people, right? Engineers, product managers, designers, and so on. And I am lucky enough to be overseeing the tech part of the company, right? So the product and engineering teams, basically.
Okay, I also love to be a product manager, so I love my job, I think. Okay, then let's jump into our main topic for today. So you've recently developed an operational framework for product launch and international market adaptation that has been crucial to Aspire's success. Can you walk us through this framework and explain how it works?
Yes, sure. So maybe just a little bit of context first, right, on
Sure.
this framework. What is it about, where it comes from? So this company, Aspire, right, we have been essentially in one market for most of the existence of the company, around 6-7 years now. This market being Singapore. We recently launched in Indonesia, so a second market. But overall, not so much, internationalization so far. And as we were with the rest of the management team, right, looking ahead and thinking, okay, what are the next milestones for the company in terms of revenue growth? Where do we want to be in 5-10 years? It became quite apparent that we needed to be a bit more aggressive in terms of expansion, right? So discussions after discussions, we came up with a plan basically to expand to 5, 6, 7 countries in the next 2-3 years. And once that is said and on the table, right, you take a step back and you realize, wow, this is actually quite a lot, right? We expanded recently to a new country, Indonesia, and easier said than done, right? A lot of trials and errors, and getting to product market fit, getting to success, is not easy. It takes time. So how can we maybe develop some kind of playbook, a framework, right, to be able to do that, all these expansion in a relatively short amount of time without exploding, right? And ideally having some kind of repeatable process, right? So that's a bit the background here. And maybe just before moving on, right, one caveat I would say, the process is not fully tested in the sense of we are just starting this journey, right? So we have early signs of positiveness about it, let's say, right? Because we feel, and oftentimes, right, your gut feelings in product, right, is a good indicator of whether you are doing good or not. But gut feeling is that it's positive because we feel a bit more in control, right, of what we are doing, where we are going. But it's still to be proven in a way, right? So I'd say that the first thing about this framework is to recognize that expansion, going to new markets, is something very different from basically running the business, running the show in the markets where you already are, where things work, and it's a bit BAU in a way, right? It's never BAU in a startup. You're always ambitious. You always want to hit, more ambitious goals, but still, to some extent, right, you have built a machine, right, in inputs. Every month you have new clients, you have some people staying, some people churning, some people growing, and, you set up OKRs. It's a machine, basically, right, that runs. You tweak it, you optimize it, but it's relatively stable. While when you expand to a new market, right, the feeling we had, right, and basically the mindset we wanted to have is to say, no, it's completely different, right? It's almost like if you are starting from scratch again, right? You already come with a product, so it's not completely starting from zero, but nothing more, right? You don't have a local team, you don't understand the local context very much. Lots of things, right? There are new competitors, lots of things are different, right? And so the operational mode probably needs to be very different from what you do in your comfort zone, right? Your existing markets. A much higher pace, quicker iterations, trying things, failing fast, and so on. A bit like in an early stage startup, basically, right? So the first main consideration is to say, okay, everything about expansion, we are going to take it very separately from the rest, right? So we carve it out of the rest of our processes. It's going to be driven by different people, different goals, different KPIs, and so on, right? As much as possible. Then once that is said, okay, then what do we do precisely or concretely? One thing that is a bit specific about our company, right, is we are a fintech, so we are in a regulated industry. And among other things, that entails that to go to a new market, we need to do many things ahead of the launch, like securing some licenses or strategic partners, right, to launch our payment products. And those things can take quite a lot of time, right? Depending on the market, it can be 6 months at best, but usually more like 1, 2, 3 years, right? So it's important to think ahead, basically. And so we have established some kind of a sequenced process to approach our country launches, right? I think we have something like 5, 6 steps. So it always starts first with a bit of analysis of, okay, which markets do we want to target, to prioritize, right? So here we have a mix of market size analysis or assessment, competition analysis to understand a bit how competitive the market is, right? And where could we position ourselves. A bit of regulatory analysis as well, right? We need to understand if in a given market, right, it's first possible to launch our products, right? Does the regulation allow? And then how exactly can we proceed? What is it best to apply for a license? Maybe you can instead acquire a company with a license. Maybe you can find a partner with the licenses. For each different product we have, it's often a different type of license or of setup. So a lot of complexity to be explored, right? So this very initial phase of high-level exploration to get a sense of where we could and then should go, right? We get out of that a bit of a prioritized list of countries or markets, a bit like a backlog for a PM, right? And then we go to the next step, which is for the countries where we deem that the model is to apply for a license, we go to what we call the licensing phase, right? So we apply for the necessary licenses to be able to launch there. Then you wait, right? Because, you need to apply, right? So a lot of work there, but then it can take quite some time to be unlocked, let's say. But once, after 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, it's unlocked, we enter into a phase which would be phase 3, which is what we call the financial partnerships phase. So we have a team in the company dedicated to financial partnerships, right? So identifying and then closing deals with the banks, the payment service providers, who can be strong partners for us to power our service, right? Our underlying payment banking capabilities. So that's the third phase. Following which, product comes into play more centrally. So we have what we call the build phase, right? So once we have the licenses and the partners, it's about building the product, so doing the integrations, also analyzing what localization is required to be able to launch in the market. It's only a bit surface level, right? Because we are not yet on the ground, right? We don't have a local team in the market. So it's more desktop research to try to understand, okay, what do the competitors do and have that we don't have and why, so should we have it or not? So prioritize list of features. And then after the build phase is the launch phase, right? So then we really go to market and start, to try to onboard the first few clients. And the next phase is actually very critical. And product also has a very central role here. We call it the PMF phase. It's the product market fit phase, or trying to find product market fit, right? Which is a bit always the complicated thing, but once you have it, usually you're good. And so here we have a setup with product driving, but very closely working with product marketing, with sales as well. We have operations, and basically we have a very high frequency of interaction set up to try different things, right? Try to understand what positioning of our product can work, right? What USPs, what ICPs, like ideal client profile, and so on. So this phase can last from 1, 2, 3, 6 months, depending on how long it takes to figure out. And then once we have strong signs of product market fit, which we try to define internally, right? For us, it's a certain NPS score. It's a certain amount of clients we manage to onboard every month and who don't churn, right? Then we go to the next and last stage of the process, which is the scale phase, where basically it's about really transforming this into a machine, bringing in salespeople, SDRs, marketing, and then investing and pushing to grow faster, right? So roughly we have this process with different phases, and we make sure for each phase, right, to have clear owners and clear goals each time, right? So the build phase, for example, the goal is to be able to launch and to onboard the first client, right? Product market fit phase, as discussed, we have targets in terms of satisfaction, in terms of number of clients onboarded per month, and so on. And so each time we go to the next phase sequentially like this. So yeah, that's roughly an overview of the process.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing the whole journey. So it seems like, so you mentioned about local needs and also how long it will take. It depends on the market, and also finding a product market fit is always one of the biggest homework for every product managers, I think. So speaking of long-term strategies and forward planning technology, particularly AI is playing an increasingly critical role these days in shaping the future of product development and market expansion. So we at Zenbird have launched the Zenbird AI chatbot to enhance customer interactions and support. So how do you see AI fitting into the overall strategy for product development and customer engagement in Aspire?
Sure. So I guess like every company on the planet, right, we are trying to figure out, what we can do with AI.
Yeah.
Specifically Gen AI, right, which is the new kid around the block, although AI has existed for a while. So maybe I can simply share a bit of an overview of where we use AI in the company, right? What are the things that kind of also run and work, and what are the things that are a bit experimental and the learning so far. So we actually use AI in quite a lot of places today, both when it comes to product features, right? Client-facing features, as well as automation and the facilitation of our internal operations, right? So on the latter, we use AI a lot for everything related to customer support, right? So it's a bit connected to what you were mentioning at Sandbird, I guess, right? We have our first level of customer service, which is basically a bot now, right? We have trained a Gen AI-based bot with all our FAQs, right? And first released this in a small pilot, and as we saw, very positive results which we measured using the same basically method as what we measure for non-AI support. It's customer satisfaction surveys, right? So we saw that with the bot, we managed to have, for simple queries, simple cases, right, customer satisfaction scores that were just as high, sometimes even higher than with human team members, right? So that's a place where we have started using AI and Gen AI. We also use AI, a bit more traditional, simple AI, but in all the compliance activities we conduct as a fintech, right? So things like KYC, transaction monitoring, a lot of those things are supported, boosted by AI. On the product features front, right, we have as well relatively traditional features like optic character recognition. One of the products we have on the platform is an expense management product. So you send your expenses and then you can claim for reimbursement as an employee. So we have features that allow to automatically extract from your picture of a receipt the key information. And things also around matching your expenses to a transaction or things like this. And now we are also experimenting with real Gen AI features on two use cases. One is around analytics. So again, our product, right, is a business account and finance management software for businesses, for SMEs. And so you can do many things on it, manage your expenses, as we said, manage your invoices, your payables, your collections, many things. And we have an interface where you can see a bit of analytics, right? Your cash flows in and out, your payment dues, what is late, and so on. And so we are offering now an alternative way to query the analytics of your account, which is chat-based, basically, right? So instead of having to click on filters for the date and so on, you just ask to the bot, okay, what was my cash flow? What was my inflow of cash last month? Or what is my run rate, right, for my startup? And we have quite a few positive feedbacks from our clients on this. It's not revolutionary, right? At the end of the day, it's the same use case, but it's just a different way, more human, to interact with the product, basically, right? We are getting closer and closer to human-like interaction, right, as opposed to talking to a machine, basically. And another use case we have, which is in beta for now, right, and a bit more ambitious in a way, is to use AI, a bot as well, but to execute actions on your account, right? So, for example, can you create a card for my trip to Jakarta, for example, right, with a limit of $500, right, that I will use for this, for that, and then the AI does it automatically. So here we take a careful approach because it's about money, right? And as we know, AI sometimes can hallucinate or make mistakes, right? So, and we don't want our clients, right, to have money going away or even just fearing that from happening, right? So it's important for us that our clients always feel in control of what's going on in the account. So the approach we took is that before executing any action suggested by the AI, right, there is always a confirmation by the user, basically, right? So a page with a proper button you click, right, that recaps the action to be done. And I think in general, specifically for critical actions in a company, right, where you want to use AI, right, I think having a man in the middle, right, who checks, who validates, is something that is going to be key. Specifically when you don't have a lot of data to train your algorithms and it can make mistakes, right? I guess in the future it won't be needed either, right? Because on some specific use cases, like in the medical world, you hear that AIs can be better than specialists like radiologists, for example, at detecting cancer cells, right, in pictures. But that's when you have a lot of data to train the models, right? And in the case of a standard software company like us, where you just have a bit of FAQs here and there, and I mean, it's maybe a bit risky, let's say, to not ask for a human validation at the end.
Do you think it's a kind of a limitation of AI? Because you mentioned the man in the middle, and we should be do the very careful approach to recommend car, for example, and you said it's still in beta phase. And how do you see the limitation of AI?
Well, it's yeah, it's a bit like what we were saying, right? You can, I mean, it's very risky to fully trust an AI. I think as of now, right, because it's still nascent technology. It's very promising. It's even amazing and surprising what it can do, but I mean, not everything fully tried and tested. You can see it also with, I don't know, autonomous cars, right? Tesla, it's been years and years and years that they are training the models, and still there are, hiccups sometimes, right? So I think it's, maybe thinking of AI support, AI bots, AI agents as a human executive assistant, perhaps, right? So they really do a lot of heavy lifting for you, help you save a lot of time, right? You give them a few instructions and they get back with something that is, qualitative. And the more you interact together, the more you train your assistant, the better it gets. But you prefer still to do a final check before sending it to your CEO or whatever, right? And so, yeah, it's about having always the control, right? The final word, the final check. I think, yeah, it's a good trade-off to make the most of its capabilities without taking too much risk, basically.
Okay. Looking ahead, what do you see as the future trends or advancements in scaling a business that companies like Aspire should be preparing for?
Well, I think, when you take a step back and say, okay, what is different now from, 5 or 10 years ago, right? Probably, and that is relevant to what we are doing, probably again, AI, right? As we said, though, AI is not necessarily, the silver bullet for everything, right? It has a lot of potential, but also limitations. So at the very core, I think expansion, because that's the topic of today, right, is always complex, is always very specific. I mean, I don't think there is a, again, silver bullet formula that you can apply for any company in any context at any point in time, right? It's a highly ambiguous, complex topic that in a company, right, the management team needs to, think about and iterate on constantly to define the right framework for their company. And again, even that needs to be constantly updated, refined, improved like a product, right? And it's a lot, as we discussed, about the foundations of managing an organization, right? Having clear, repeatable processes, clear goals all the time, segregation of ownership, and setting up the right pace, and so on. But to go faster in each step, at each junction, right? You can potentially leverage AI, again, like an executive assistant, to go faster on some things, right? For example, to be concrete, right? If we, think back to the beginning of our chat, right, about the framework I was talking about we have, which starts for us with a market analysis. We say, okay, we want to have a sense of the competition in the market, how big it is, and so on. Before AI, right, you had to do that manually, checking database online and so on. Now, with AI, you can just ask ChatGPT or a few sources, right, and then you cross-check what they say, and you just go much faster, right? But I think for the overall, architecture of your approach, right, of your reasoning, it's still something that needs to be defined by humans. Here as well, you can ask AI to help you, right? And you can challenge, but a bit like an alter ego, right? Someone that is a bit like your advisor as well. But yeah, I think it's. I don't think AI is able today to tell me what is the right way to scale my company abroad for the next 10 years, right? If I ask it, probably I will get very. I think we tried actually. You get very generic answers, right? Because at the end of the day, like AIs are just like, they accumulate all the knowledge you have on the web or wherever they learn, right? And they give you some kind of vague average about it, right? So they don't have all the context. So I think where we humans, right, have an edge is on really the context, right? Understanding what is specific about your situation, your company, and so on. And whenever there is something that is a bit generic, then you can really gain a lot of time by working with AIs.
Okay, I think we are almost out of time. So before wrapping up today's session, what advice would you give to other product leaders looking to implement a similar framework for scaling with certainty?
So, by the way, again on the title, scaling with certainty, right? I mean, I wouldn't say that we are certain of success, but let's say increasing confidence or reducing risk a little bit, right? I think first it's about acknowledging that it's complex, that it's not going to be BAU, right? If you are in BAU mode, it's like, okay, we have something that works. It should be easy to do it somewhere else. Very risky, right? So imagine, starting afresh again, right? Questioning all your assumptions, all the things that seem to work. Being very curious, aware, asking why everywhere, right? So acknowledging the difficulty, basically. Carving out the expansion initiatives, right, motions from the rest of the business to give a bit of room to go faster, to experiment, to pace things differently, to not be constrained by targets or by frameworks that don't apply to what you do. So recognize the complexity, carve out on the side, and then, like when you build a product, try to go to product market fit and improve it, right? Iterate. As part of this framework we have, right, for each phase, we have a lot of meetings every week, every 2 weeks, depending on the topics, right? But it's with very few people, right? It's not like big town hall meetings. Select few people, but constantly checking in on what we have done, what we have learned, what worked, what didn't, and iterating, right? And trying to do things that scale, to quote the famous expression, but progressively, right? If you try to have something that is too rigid, too early, you run the risk of being too constrained, basically, right?
So constantly checking and iteration. So that is the last word you would like to share.
Exactly, right? And which actually is a bit about the thrill of early stage products or early stage ventures, right? When you are in a company that starts to be established, some people like that, right? But it gets a bit comfort zone and maybe less exciting, right? And so it's also about getting out of your comfort zone, right? And exposing yourself to something that is a bit new, and enjoying it also as much as possible while doing it.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing your experience and insight. I think that was really valuable as a startup at Ascembert. So I also have the same thoughts as you have, and so constantly checking. So the last word I'll keep in my mind. And hopefully the audience, you also enjoyed this session. And thank you very much for joining today, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sienna. It was a pleasure.